was looking at the mmqb.com, Peter King's website. He, of course, with Sports Illustrated, and had a title with his column talking about Dan Marino. Like, what are you doing, Dan Marino? Dan Marino no longer working for CBS in their pregame show, and jumped in with this concussion lawsuit. And I don't know if Peter had the same thought that I did, but why now for Dan Marino? And is it the coincidence that he leaves a TV job that's affiliated with the NFL and he's jumped in the concussion lawsuit? Peter joins us now. Pete, what was your reaction when you heard this?
I did have that thought, Dan, but then I found out last night that Dan Marino is actually pretty far along the road right now in negotiations to take a job with the Dolphins. And I don't know what the job will be, whether it'll be a job of significance, whether it's going to be more of a ceremonial job. I don't know, but I asked myself this question, and I wrote it today in my column, that as much as you and I might say, well, now that he's gone with CBS, he can do this. Well, if you're trying to get a job with one of the 32 teams, is this very good timing in filing this lawsuit now? So that's why I say, look, there's so many questions about this that we don't know. We got to wait to hear from Dan. We got to wait to hear from the attorneys.
Well, also, how would Stephen Ross feel about this, the owner of the Dolphins,
of course,
if Dan is part of this concussion lawsuit?
Yeah, I mean, that was when I heard that, I said, how in the world is Stephen Ross going to pay this guy who's trying to, who's basically trying to get money from the NFL from concussion, apparently. Now, I should say this, out of fairness. There are some players, and I've talked to several of them, Rich Miano, for one, the former safety for the Jets and the Eagles, who told me, he said, I don't want any money. All I want is the acknowledgement that the NFL needs to do something about this. They need to be significantly more, open with the players on the whole concussion issue and head trauma. So, again, that's why I say I think we all have to be a little bit careful and say, let's wait to hear from Marino and wait to hear from the attorneys. I just want to hear some explanation of what this all means.
But is the game better, safer, because of the concussion lawsuit being filed?
I mean, I think the NFL was on the way to doing some things about head trauma, putting independent doctors, neurologists on the sidelines, putting an eye in the sky in the press box, to monitor what's going on the field and order doctors on the sidelines to go take a look at number 52. Did this help it? I mean, it sure didn't hurt it. That's for sure. But, only the NFL, only the people deep inside the NFL could tell you whether they were prompted out of fear of a gigantic lawsuit.
He's Peter King from the mmqb.com, Football Night in America, Sports Illustrated, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. You also had Stephen Ross saying, the Dolphins owner, that he expects one or two teams to be in Los Angeles within 5 years. What do you think?
Well, I quoted Arthur Blank yesterday in Monday Morning Quarterback, basically saying just about the same thing, that he not only sees a team in Los Angeles, I think he sees either one or two teams in Europe within 5 years. Or close after that. And I keep asking myself, okay, so if we're talking about all these new teams, are we talking about a 35-team league, or are we talking about three teams relocating? Are we talking about the Rams relocating, the Chargers, the Bills, whoever relocating? So, that's the tricky thing. I still think that the end game in Europe is not going to be a team, but it's going to be a series of games. Because, Dan, one of the things that people really don't understand about these games in Europe is that there are expats all over the continent and new fans all over the continent who fly into London for those games on Sunday and then just fly back out either that night or the next day. So I'm not really sure that the Jacksonville Jaguars moving to London, and before everybody in North Florida goes nuts, I don't care who it is. You pick whether the New York Giants moving to London. I'm not sure that that's the best way to get the most fans. I think fans like the change-ups. They like the Steelers once every 4 years, let's say. So I still think that's the most logical way.
I guess I thought of the Raiders that, given that the Niners are moving into their new building, that the Raiders going back to Los Angeles. Can you see that happening?
I could see that being a possibility, but the problem is, I think that there's not a lot of fervor in Los Angeles locally for a Mark Davis-owned team. And in fact, it isn't just Mark Davis. It's most owners in the NFL. Their interest in L.A., they want to own the team. They want to control what's going on there, and they don't want a rerun of past disasters in L.A. The late, the last few years when the Rams were there, certainly the end when the Raiders were there 20 years ago this year. And, Dan, isn't it amazing? I mean, I find it absolutely amazing that we are coming up. This year is the 20th anniversary of the last game of football, pro football in Los Angeles. It's been 20 years.
Wow.
And we got a huge story tomorrow on the day football died in Los Angeles, December 24, 1994. It's really, really cool. It's sort of a play-by-play of the day. I think people will get a kick out of it.
Why did it die?
A lot of reasons. I think the biggest of which, there wasn't any corporate money really supporting the Raiders in Los Angeles. They weren't going to be able to get a new stadium the way that Al Davis wanted to. Oakland really wanted him back. That's one thing. And the second thing is, I think the Rams got a tremendous sweetheart deal from St. Louis, and they were having trouble getting the same kind of deal, to put it mildly, in Anaheim or anywhere in Southern California. So I think they followed the money, both teams.
Brian Urlacher to come out of retirement to the Cowboys? Are you buying that?
I talked to somebody there yesterday who said that that's not going to happen, but I haven't talked to the ultimate person, Jerry Jones, to ask whether that's going to happen, so I don't know. It does seem logical to at least bring, say, a Brian Urlacher, a Paris Lennon type to training camp just to see if it'll work. But they picked a fourth-rounder, a kid from Iowa, who, to me, I don't view Brian Urlacher as a magic pill, especially at his age and having been out of football for a year. I mean, it sounds like to me a popped hamstring waiting to happen. You don't know, but certainly, I mean, if I'm the Cowboys, I'm probably going with youth.
I saw where Tim Tebow says he's never been in better shape and still hasn't given up on the dream with the NFL.
Tim Tebow, to me, has been Charles Atlas for like the last 3 years. How can he be in better shape now than he was when he was with the Patriots? He looked like a cross between Frank Shorter and the Incredible Hulk. I mean, I don't get the. This is the time of year. I guarantee you there will be 2,700 players in training camp, and 2,644 of them are going to come out with the following quote between the first and fourth days of training camp. I've never been in better shape in my life. I mean, come on. I'm sure if Tim Tebow were in anything other than optimum shape, I would be shocked.
Well, that's never been my concern if he was in shape.
Yeah.
It was other things.
Yeah, like accuracy downfield.
Yeah, little things like that. Final question. If you could go to just one training camp, what training camp would that be?
I'd go to the Pittsburgh Steelers on the Friday night of Hall of Fame weekend, when every year they go to Latrobe High School and they travel in yellow school buses, and the entire community comes out. They get dressed at camp. They get on school buses in their uniforms with pads, just like they were in high school. You know, when you travel on the bus 15 miles to go play somebody and you get dressed on and go on the bus, and then you get out there and they walk through a phalanx of people, of Latrobians, and they shake hands, and afterwards they sign autographs for a bunch of time. I mean, to me, it's the greatest tradition in all of training camps right now in the NFL, and it's something that I think is, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it.
We have a poll question. If you think the Spurs are boring, but I ran the parallel with the Patriots, kind of similar with coaches, kind of it's almost systematic that they want you to be boring when you go to the press conference, knowing what to say.
Right.
Patriots do air it out. Brady has the Hollywood looks and married to a model, but we've had drama off the field with them. But why is it we can embrace the Patriots but can't embrace the San Antonio Spurs?
I get more hate for the Patriots than probably any team that I write about. So I'm not sure that all of America embraces the Patriots. I think people...
Well, they hate Belichick, right?
Well, I do think they hate Belichick, but I think that people get sick of the same team. And then when that team is gone, they long for that team to be back. They want a super team, but then when they get a super team, they want everybody to knock them off.
Thank you, Pete.
All right, Dan, all the best.
All right, Peter King from the mmqb.com.